What happens when a tiny, helpless life is in danger and a brave soul steps in? Get ready for a true story about a wild rescue and an unbelievable reaction that will make you rethink everything. Subscribe now for more incredible animal stories. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The spring rain poured down for days in Nevada's Pine Valley, turning the usually calm Humboldt River into a wild, rushing monster. Jack Miller, a rancher in his early 40s, stood by the riverbank, worried. His land bordered the wild spaces where Mustang horses roamed free. He knew some of these horses, recognizing different groups. This morning, he saw a band of about 9 Mustangs near the river, led by a beautiful gray mare with a white star on her forehead. He thought of her as Star. Star carefully checked the water, looking for a safe way across, as they usually did when the river was low. The other horses waited nervously behind her, including a tiny, wobbly-legged baby horse, no more than 2 weeks old. Jack felt a knot of worry in his stomach. This river was too dangerous now. "Don't try it," he whispered, even though they couldn't hear him over the roar of the water. For a moment, it seemed Star understood. She backed away, nudging the others to move upstream. Jack sighed in relief and turned back to fix his fence. Then he heard a splash. He looked up quickly, and his heart jumped into his throat. The little baby horse had somehow wandered too close to the edge. The wet ground crumbled beneath its small hooves, and it tumbled into the raging river. The baby horse cried out, fighting desperately against a strong current. Star raced along the bank, her panic calls echoing across the valley as she followed her baby downstream. The other horses were clearly distressed too. Without thinking twice, Jack ran along the side of the river, trying to keep up with the tiny, struggling foal. He knew he shouldn't interfere with wild horses, but watching the little one fight for its life, he didn't care about rules or common sense. Up ahead, the river curved, creating a slightly calmer area where floating branches and logs collected. If the foal reached that spot, it might have a chance, or to get tangled and drown. Jack ran faster, reaching a fallen tree that stretched partly into the water. He quickly took off his jacket and boots. The little foal was getting weaker. Its small head barely stayed above the water as the current pulled it closer to the dangerous pile of debris. Star and her band were still running along the opposite bank, their eyes never leaving the baby. "Hang on, little guy," Jack muttered, positioning himself on the slippery tree trunk. He had one shot. Balancing carefully, Jack reached out as the foal floated closer, tumbling helplessly. He plunged his arms into the icy water, grabbing the foal's wet neck just as the current threatened to sweep it away forever. The little horse struggled weakly, scared. "Easy now," Jack soothed, though he knew the wild animal couldn't understand him. He held on tight, pulling with all his strength. Finally, he dragged the exhausted foal to the muddy bank. They both collapsed, gasping for breath. For a moment, Jack was terrified the little one was gone. Then, its tiny chest rose and fell with shaky breath, followed by a weak cough as it coughed up river water. "That's it," Jack whispered gently. "Breathe." Across the river, Star was frantic, pacing and calling to her baby. Jack knew he had to get away quickly. Wild horses could be dangerous around their young. He slowly backed away, giving the foal some space. The little horse wobbled to its feet, wet and shivering, but alive. It took a few unsteady steps, then looked right at Jack with big, watery eyes before making a soft, gentle sound. It almost sounded like, "Thank you?" Jack shook his head, thinking it was just his imagination. Wild animals didn't thank people. But now, the river was still raging between the foal and its mother. There was no way the weak baby could cross. Star seemed to understand, continuing to pace anxiously on the other side. Jack knew he needed help. There was a ranger station nearby. They might have a way to safely get the foal back to its mother, if the band stayed in the area. As he turned to go to his truck, something unbelievable happened. Star stopped pacing. She looked directly at Jack. Then, to his complete shock, the mare deliberately walked into the river. "No!" Jack yelled, waving his arms. "It's too dangerous." But Star had made up her mind. With a determination that amazed Jack, She began swimming across the powerful current, her strong body fighting against the water that had almost taken her baby. Jack watched, holding his breath, as Star struggled through the churning water. The little foal whinnied softly from beside Jack, its small voice barely audible above the roar of the river. The sound seemed to give Star more strength. For a terrifying moment, the mare disappeared under the surface. Jack's heart leaped into his throat. Then her head popped back up, still fighting, still moving towards her baby and the man who had saved him. Finally, exhausted but triumphant, Star reached the shallow water and pulled herself onto the bank. Jack backed away, giving her plenty of space. He expected her to grab her foal and run. Instead, Star went to her baby first, nuzzling it and checking for injuries. The foal leaned against her, finding comfort. Then, once she was sure her baby was okay, Star did something truly extraordinary. She turned her attention to Jack. The wild mare took several slow steps towards him, her ears forward, her body showing no fear. Jack stood perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. In all his years around horses, he had never seen a wild Mustang approach a human like this, especially a mother with her vulnerable baby. Star stopped about 10 feet away, looking directly into Jack's eyes. Then she lowered her head and neck in a clear sign of trust and acknowledgement. She held the position for a few seconds before raising her head again, still watching him intently. "You're welcome," Jack whispered, feeling a connection he couldn't explain. Star gave a soft snort, then turned back to her foal. Together, they began walking along the riverbank, looking for a way to rejoin their band. Jack watched them go, completely stunned. Later that day, he saw Star and her band safely cross the river at a shallower spot upstream. Before they disappeared into the wild, Star paused, looking back at Jack one last time. That night, Jack told his wife the incredible story. She smiled. "Animals understand more than we think," she said. "That mare knew you saved her baby." Jack nodded, the image of Star's gesture still clear in his mind. "I always respected those horses," he said quietly, "but I never expected one of them to show me respect in return." Moral of the story: kindness and respect can create connections you never thought possible, even with the wildest of creatures.